Hello everyone, welcome to second week of learning UI UX design using Adobe XD. Today we are going to be recreating the existing website design of Infinity Media Academy. So this is what we want to achieve in today's class, and we will also make sure we add one or two things to make it look better than this. So right now I'm going to um, open a new workspace by going to file, then I'll click on new, and then on the presets list that you can see over here, I'll click on the drop down arrow for the web design, and I'm going to choose 1280 pixel by 800 pixel. All right, now we are going to get started by naming our artboard. So this canvas layout that you can see here is the artboard that we are going to make our design on. So I'm going to change the name of the artboard by clicking on the name that you can see here. Then I will edit and change to what the name of this artboard is going to be. So in this case, it's going to be IMA website. So I'll hit enter on the keyboard to save. The next thing I want to do is to create a custom layout. So this is what it's going to look like. Now what you're going to do is to select the name of the artboard, then come over to the right side bar of the properties section. Then you will see the option that says grid. Under this section, we are going to enable the columns layout by checking this box. So once you have it checked, the columns layout will be enabled and you can see it on the artboard. Now we are going to change one or two settings for the columns layout. These column settings that we are going to be adjusting now could be different for you and could be different based on the design that you want to make. So for this design we want to create for the IMA website, we are going to use the columns settings of 12, which is the standard. That's the number of columns we are going to create. So what these 12 columns means is the bars that you can see on the screen now is going to be 12, and that is by standard. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to set the gutter width, and the gutter is the white spacing between each column bar that you can see now. So each of this white spacing is the gutter. So we are going to leave it at 16. Then we are going to also make sure that the column width too is 69. So all of the default settings that we have here, we are going to leave it that way. Now that the columns layout is enabled, we are going to continue with our design. So the first thing I want to do now is to create a rectangle shape on this artboard. So to create a rectangle shape, you should go to the tool section on the left side and then select the rectangle shape that you can see now. Click, then come over to your artboard to draw the rectangle shape. So click on the artboard, then drag to create the rectangle shape that you want. So in this case, uh, this is not the exact rectangle we want, but I am going to adjust it better now to get the exact result of the rectangle that I want. So click on any of these points, then drag to the desired part that you want, then drag again. Now, what we want to achieve here is to make sure that we divide this artboard into two. So one part on the left side and the other part on the right side. So the left side is going to have 6 columns from the 12 columns we created. So the right side too will have 6 columns from the 12 columns we created, so that we'll be able to arrange the elements on the screen on one side of the artboard and the other elements on the right side of the artboard. Now that we have a rectangle shape as the background of the left side, I'm going to drag and drop our image background into this shape background that I have now. I want the image I'm bringing in to take the exact size of this shape that we have just created. Otherwise, the image will not fit into the artboard. So you will see how that works now because I'm going to drag the image. So this is the image we are going to use. I'm going to select and drag, then replace the shape that we already have on the hardboard. So right now I can adjust the size of this image the way I like because it's already occupying the shape that we have in the artboard, just like this. So now I'm controlling the size of the shape and not the size of the image. So the image is automatically fitted into the shape that we have. All right, so the next thing I want to do is to also create another shape and overlay it on the image that we have here. So I'm going to select the rectangle tool now, then drag and draw a new rectangle shape. I'm going to choose the select tool again to return to the select tool and then click on any point of the rectangle shape to adjust it. So now that I have the rectangle adjusted and covering the image, right now there's a border line that is surrounding this rectangle shape I have just created. So I'm going to make sure that this border line is removed, as you can see here. So once you have the shape selected, head over to the properties sidebar and then under appearance, you can uncheck the border option that you can see here. So the next thing I want to do is to create linear gradient color for this shape I have now. So I'll head over to the appearance section also, then under fill color, I'll click the color box. You can see at the top side, there's a solid color and a drop down arrow. So you click on the drop down arrow and then you select linear gradient. So linear gradient means you can apply multiple colors to your layer or to the shape or any element you have on the screen, but on a straight line. So now you will see how that works. Now I'm going to first bring in the logo we want to use for this website so we can pick the color we need from the logo. So now I'm going to drag in the logo we need. This is it. So now I'm going to resize the logo to fit into the position we want to place it. So head over to the right sidebar properties of the logo and you can see under transform section, I'm going to set the width to 300. Let's make sure it is starting from the first column bar that you can see here right now. So the next thing I want to do is to change the color of this rectangle shape that we already have. So I'm going to select the rectangle shape again, then come over to the properties sidebar, then go to the appearance section and then click on the fill color box. And then we can pick the color for the linear gradient from the logo we just brought into the artboard. So right now I'm going to choose the color from the color that you can see here now. So I will click on the color picker here, then pick the color from the logo. Also, for the other part of the linear gradient, I'm going to select this point that you can see here to change the color. So once selected, I can then click on the color picker, then also pick this color also, or let's change to white. Let's pick from the white color just from here. And now we have two linear gradient colors for our shape element. So now the next thing I want to do is to create a transparency for this shape layer to make sure that we reveal the image behind it. So now that I have the shape layer selected, I'll come over to the appearance properties and then reduce to about 50. Okay, so now we can toggle off the columns layout for now. Then once we need it, we will return it. So click the checkbox under grid section for layout to turn it off. All right. So the next thing I want to do now is to make sure that I have the rectangle shape selected. If you are not sure if you have the rectangle shape selected, make sure you open the layer sidebar on the left side, and then you can see that the rectangle shape is selected. So I'm going to create a background blur for the image by setting the background properties of this shape layer to on. So if you head over to the right sidebar, on the properties sidebar of appearance, you will see an option that says background blur. So now that we have the rectangle selected, I'm going to enable the background blur. Okay. Now I want to change the settings of the background blur and make sure it's not too revealing the image. So I'm going to set this to 50 to make it 100% blurred out. Then I'm going to set this to -50 to reduce the brightness. And I'm going to set the opacity to 100 to make it fully opaque. The next thing I want to do is to try to increase the opacity of the rectangle shape that we have. Then I'm going to try 75%. Okay. Now I'm going to also adjust the fill color while I have the rectangle shape selected. Now I'm going to try and turn this linear gradient upside down so that the top side is having the white color while the downside is having the purple color. So what I'm going to do in this case is to change this point which is having the purple color to white. Then I'm going to change the other one that has white to purple by using the color picker. Then I'm going to pick the purple color. The next thing we want to do now is to create our text. So I'm going to click on the text tool now to create our text. So what I'm going to do is to click on any part of the artboard, then drag to create the text area where I'm going to type the text. So I'm going to type welcome to September class. Okay. So I'll return to the selection tool. Then I'm going to change the font style for this text and also the font weight and style it very well. So the font I want to use for this text now is a custom font that I have installed, which is TT Commons. Okay. So I'm going to increase the font size to 76, and then I'm going to change the font weight to black. Okay, and I'm also going to change the font color to white. All right, so the next thing I want to do now is to also adjust the line spacing to 58. I'm going to make sure that this text we have just created is aligned to the logo on the left side. So I'm going to also give it a spacing of about 30. Right now we have 28 spacing. So to check the spacing between this text and the element on top of it, I'm going to hold Option or Alt on the Windows keyboard, then place the mouse on top of the element close to it. So you can see now that the pixel spacing we have there is 28. So I'm going to push this down 2 steps. Okay, so if I check now, I have 30 pixel spacing. So I'm also going to make sure that this text we have just created is aligned very well, like this. The next thing I want to do is to duplicate this text to write a new text under here. So to duplicate, I'm going to select the text or the layer I want to duplicate and then go to Edit, then Duplicate. So the shortcut to duplicate is Command D or Control D on the Windows keyboard. So I'm going to click now and my text is already duplicated. So I'm going to click, then drag down a little bit and then change the text I have here. So to change this text, you can either click on the text tool, then click on the text, or once you have the text selected, you can double click to edit it. So I'm going to type take the front seat. So right now, I'm going to change the font style, the font weight, and the font size that I have for this text. So I'm going to choose a different font, and then I'm going to give it a font size of 28, and then I'm going to change the font weight to regular. Okay. Also, I'll make sure that the text box that I use to create the text you can see over here is no longer what I'm going to use for this. So now I'm going to adjust the auto height of this text I have here to auto width. So if you head over to the properties sidebar under the text section, you can see the option that says auto height and the one that says auto width. So I'm going to select auto width. Now we are going to create our button. I'm going to select the rectangle tool now, then draw a rectangle under the text I already have here. Now I'll return to the selection tool, then I'm going to return the columns layout on this artboard by selecting the name of the artboard, then I'm going to check the box close to layout. All right, so the next thing I want to do now is to make sure that this rectangle shape I have just created is expanded from this point, beginning of the bar, to the end of the sixth bar that we have here. So I'm going to also make sure that I divide this rectangle that I've just created now into two. So we are going to use one for the sign in button and we are going to use the other one for the register button. So now, and the spacing between the sign in and the register button, we are going to make sure it is 20 pixel spacing. So to achieve this, make sure you have the rectangle shape selected, then go to the properties sidebar and under the transform section, you can see the width. So we are going to make sure that the width, we subtract 20 from the width. So now that I've subtracted 20 from the width, you can see that it has reduced by 20 pixels. I'm also going to make sure that this rectangle shape we have is also divided into two. So under the transform section, I'll divide the width again to 2. Okay, so now we have the exact size we want for the sign in button. Now I'm going to hide the columns layout now so we can continue. Now that I have the rectangle shape we have created, now that I have it selected, I'm going to make sure I turn off the borderline that is surrounding it. Just this black borderline that you can see now. So I'm going to turn it off under the appearance section and you can see border. The next thing I want to do is to also create a corner radius for this rectangle shape that you can see now by going to appearance and then the box over here that says corner radius. So I'm going to change the value to 10. Okay, so now I'm going to also write the text on this shape we have created to make it look like a button. So I'm going to copy from the text I have here, then paste again. Now the text is duplicated. I'm going to hit shift on the keyboard and then the down arrow on the keyboard at the same time to move it down. So now I'm going to change the color of this text by coming down to the appearance properties, then change the fill color. So I'll select the color picker and then pick from the blue color that I have here. And then I'm going to also make sure that this text is center aligned under the text section here. Okay, so now I'm also going to change the text to sign in. Okay, now the other thing I also want to make sure I do here is to reduce the size of the sign in text and the background color. So now that I have the text selected, I'm going to change it to 22. Then I'm going to make sure that the height of this sign in button is 55. Then I'm going to center align the text within the shape layer that I have. So I'm going to select the shape layer and the text at the same time by pressing shift on the keyboard. So I'm going to center align using the align middle vertically. Then I'm going to align center. All right. So our text is aligned now. So the next thing I want to also do is to select the text and then change the font weight to medium. So the next thing I want to do is to duplicate this button that we already have by selecting both text and the shape. Then duplicate from the top menu you can see here, and then you can see duplicate. So click on duplicate to duplicate this layer. Now the layer is already duplicated. I'm going to press shift and the right arrow on the keyboard to move it to the other side. So I'm going to make sure I have 20 pixel spacing in between both buttons. Okay, so now I'm going to change the text here to register. Okay, so the next thing I also want to do is to change the register button to outline. So the shape we have behind the register button is going to become a stroke. Now, the reason why we want to create a stroke button is because we want our users to focus on the sign in button once they land on this page. First, that's the button we want them to pay attention to and pay less attention to the register button. So I'm going to create a stroke, which is an outline for this button right now. So I'll select the shape, then go to appearance properties and then select the border color, turn it on, and then turn off the fill color. So I'm going to change the border color to white by selecting the color picker here. Then I'm going to pick from the white color here. I'll also select the text, then select the color picker under appearance in front of fill, and then select the white color to change register to white. So this is what I have now. Now the size of these two buttons are too big. So I want to make sure that it stops where this text stops. I'm going to select the background of the register button, then move it down a little bit so we can see what is happening. So what I'm going to do is also try to align it with the text we have at the top, just like this, and then click on this point to also align to this other side. Now I'm going to subtract 20 from this shape we have now just to create the spacing that will be available between the sign in button and the register button. So I'm going to subtract 20 from the width option. Then I'm going to divide it into two so we can get the exact background for our register button. Okay, so now I'm going to move this back to where it should be, but make sure it is aligned with this top text. Now I'm going to center align the register button too by selecting the register button at the same time. Then I'm going to align using these two buttons over here. So the next thing I want to do is to make sure that I check the size of this background for register, which is 197, and I'm going to select the background for sign in and also turn it to 197. Okay, so now if you check, we already have 22 pixel spacing between them. So I'm going to close up that 22 pixel spacing by selecting the register button, then move it 2 steps to the left. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is to center align the sign in text on the background, on the white background. So I'm going to select the text and the white background at the same time, and I'm going to align both. The next thing I want to do now is to create our top 5 students. So I'm going to select this text again, then duplicate by pressing Command D on the keyboard or Control D on the Windows keyboard. So I have it duplicated now, and I'm going to press Shift and down arrow on the keyboard to move it down a little bit to this point. I'm going to type the text now by clicking twice on this text that we already have. So I'm going to put top 5 students. Okay, and I'm going to change the font styling for this text we have now. So I'll go to TT Commons again, then I'll change it to black. The font weight, I'll select black. So I'm going to duplicate this text layer now by going to edit, then duplicate, and I'm going to drag it down a little bit, then change the text to August 2021 set. So let me just quickly change this to capital letter. All right, so I'm going to reduce the font size and the font weight to regular. So the font weight is regular and the font size is 2018 is okay. Okay. So now the next thing I want to do is to create the profile picture of our top 5 students. So to do this, I'm going to select the ellipse tool in the tool section. I'm going to draw the circle for the profile picture. So if I click and drag to create the circle, it's not going to be perfect. So if you want to create a perfect circle, you will have to hold shift on the keyboard, then click to create your perfect circle, just like this. So I'm going to increase the size of this circle to 55 on the width and 55 on the height. I'm going to use one of Adobe XD feature now to um, create a multiple of this ellipse shape that we have just created instead of having to copy and paste or duplicate 5 times. So to do that, you are going to select the layer you want to create a multiple instance of, and then you are going to press Command R on the keyboard or Control R on the Windows keyboard. So once you do that, you are going to see the repeater function turned on. So this is what it means to repeat. Once you see this shape that you can see surrounding the circle we have just created, it means you can now create a repeated layer. So in this case, once I click on this point, I'll be able to repeat this shape to the downside like this, or the other option that you can see here, once you click and then you drag to the right, you'll be able to create a multiple instance of the shape that we already have. So in this case, we want to have 5 instances of this shape, and I'm also going to make sure that the spacing between the shapes is 10 pixel. So to do that, make sure you hover your mouse on the repeated shapes that you already have, and then on this pink color you can see now, click and then drag to either increase the spacing or reduce the spacing. So we are going to have a 10 pixel spacing just like this. So the next thing I want to do is to replace the circle with the profile pictures of our students. So I'm going to drag and drop the profile picture now by going to my computer, then select the 5 students that we want to put their profile picture. So I'm going to drag and drop in the first shape that we have here. And you can see that the 5 pictures are automatically filled into the shapes that we have created. So now I'm going to make sure that this layer that we have just created now is aligned. So I'll click and drag to the left to make sure it is well aligned. All right, the next thing I want to also do is to come to the right side and start creating our elements. The first thing we want to do now is to create a rectangle shape. So I'm going to select the rectangle tool, then I'm going to click and drag to create the rectangle shape. So now that I have the rectangle shape created, I'm going to set the width and the height of this rectangle shape. So I will select the select tool again, then change the width to 197 and then change the height to 210. All right. So the next thing I also want to do is to make sure that I remove the border color you can see now, which is this color you can see surrounding the white layer. So if you head over to the appearance properties, you can see that the border color is checked, so turn it off. Now you cannot see the white color very clearly, so what we want to do is to give the white rectangle shape we just created a shadow color. So under the appearance properties, you can see the shadow option, then turn it on. Now we can now set the shadow property for this shape we have just created. So I'm going to also pick the color for the shadow from this logo. So what you do is check the shadow color box, then select the color picker and then pick the color from where you want it. Now I'm going to come down a little bit to make sure the color is darker on the shadow. Then one other thing I want to make sure I do is to also make sure that this shadow is not too dark, as you can see now. So to do that, you are going to set the alpha value to something lower than 100 because 100 is the highest. So we are going to make sure it is 40, and then we are done with this. Now come to the x, y, and b value that you can see here. X is the x position of the shadow. So it means whatever shadow you create with the x value will either fall to the left side or fall to the right side. If you increase or decrease the y value of the shadow, it will either position the shadow to the top side or to the downside. So we are going to adjust the y value only and increase it. So let's leave it at 10. Then let's increase the b value, which is the blur, to 32. And then let me also reduce the shadow alpha to 20. Okay. So the next thing I want to do now is to create a corner radius for this rectangle shape we have created. So if you come under appearance properties, you can see where the corner radius option is. So click on the 0 value you can see here, and then we are going to give it 15. Let's increase it a little bit to 25. Okay. So now I'm going to create the text for this shape layer that we have created, because on the right side here is where we want to create our course section. So all the courses that is being offered by Infinity Media Academy will be seen on this right side. So I'm going to add the text now. I'll select this text and then copy and paste. So I have two text layers on here. I'm going to click and drag to reveal the other one. Now I'm going to also change the text to Adobe XD. Okay, then I'll drag and drop on our rectangle shape. So I'm going to change the color so you can see clearly. Let me just quickly change to black so you can see clearly. Now I'm going to um, align it very well. I'm going to make sure that the line spacing under the text properties is reduced so that the texts are close to each other. So I'm also going to make sure that the text is center aligned. Then I'm going to center align it to the rectangle shape we have just created. So now I'm going to bring in the logo for the Adobe XD. But before then, I'm going to duplicate this layer. Then I'm going to reduce it a little bit, and I'm going to remove the shadow. So I will drag it somewhere around here. Okay, because that is where we are going to have the Adobe XD logo. So to make sure that we have a perfect size for all of the logos that we are going to be using in the course section on this side, we are going to create this shape and then replace with our logo. So whatever size we have for the shape we have created here is what our logo is going to have. So I'm going to drag and drop the logo now. So you can see now. So if we don't have that shape created and have it replaced with the logo, this is what we are going to get. So if I drag and drop this logo into Adobe XD, you can see that it's very, very big. So to make sure that your logo is well adjusted or well sized, you should create a shape layer where you are going to replace your logo. So now that I already have this, I'm going to set the width and the height to 90. So come to the transform section in the properties sidebar and change the width to 90, then the height to 90 also. So now that we have this set, I'm going to quickly resize this text and choose a different font. Now I'm going to change it to Avenia, and then I'm going to choose 32. Then I'm going to change the font size to 32 and then the font weight to medium, and also the line spacing to 32 also. I'm going to make sure that the spacing between this text and the logo is 30 pixels. So select the elements you want to check the spacing, and then press Option or Alt on the Windows keyboard, and then over your mouse on top of the next layer close to the element. Now you can see that the spacing is 25 pixels. So I'm going to move down a little bit, 5 pixels, to make this 25 complete 30. So now you can see I have 30 pixel spacing between them. So now that we have created something perfect for Adobe XD, we are going to group the three elements we already have now by selecting the three of them. So hold Shift on the keyboard, then select the other ones, and then you can use the keyboard shortcut Command G or Control G on Windows to group. Or you can right click on the elements that you have selected and then go to group. All right, so we have it grouped now, so everything is now a single element on the artboard. So I'm going to duplicate this to create our other courses. So go to edit, then click on duplicate. So I'm going to drag to one side and then make sure the spacing between them is 30 pixel. So I'm going to check now if it is 30. Okay, it is 38. So I'm going to move to the left side 8 pixel to make sure the spacing is 30 pixel. All right. So the next thing I also want to do is to replace this logo and then change the text. So I'm going to change it to Adobe Premiere Pro. And I'm also going to replace the logo. So I'll drag and drop the logo into the logo we already have, so it will be replaced. So the next thing I also want to do is to duplicate these two layers and then drag down. So I'll select both layers by holding Shift on the keyboard, and then I'm going to press Option or Alt on the keyboard to quickly duplicate the layer. So if you press Alt on the Windows keyboard and then you click and drag, it will help you to duplicate the layer very quickly. So I'm going to make sure the spacing between them is 30 pixel also. Okay, so I'm going to push down 1 pixel. All right. Now the next thing I also want to do now is to change this to Adobe After Effects. And then I'm going to replace the logo to the Adobe After Effects logo. So I'll drag and drop the logo into the one we already have. I'm also going to quickly change this one to Figma. Then I'll type Figma. So I'm going to make sure that the Figma text and the logo is 30 pixel spacing. Then check that this is also 30 pixel spacing. Okay, so immediately you have your elements grouped together. To be able to select any of the elements you have within the group, you will have to hold press command on the keyboard or control on the Windows keyboard, and then you'll be able to quickly select any of the elements within the group. So if you click on the grouped elements, you will not be able to um, have access to each of the elements that is within the group unless you have command or control key pressed on the keyboard first, and then you'll be able to select the elements individually. All right. So now the next thing I want to do is to select these two logos by holding command to select within the group. Then I'm going to hold command and shift to select within another group, then also select multiple. So this is what I'll be able to achieve now. So command will help me to select within the group, and then shift will help me to select multiple elements at the same time. So I'll hold shift now, then press the down arrow key on the keyboard to reposition the two logos. So I'll make sure it is centered just like this. All right. So now I'm going to also select these two texts, and then, okay, let me unselect the Figma and make sure that I have only the After Effects selected, and then make sure that it is 30 pixel away from the logo. Okay, then I'm going to make sure Figma 2 is 30 pixel away from the logo. Okay. All right. So the next thing I also want to do now is to offset the two courses that we have here. So I'm going to select this course and the other course here, and then offset it a little bit just like this. Now I'm also going to select the two courses we have down here to close up the gap that you can see now. So we already have 30 pixels spacing between the two courses on the horizontal, and on the vertical we want to make sure that the spacing is also 30 pixels. So I'm going to move up now. Okay, so it is 26. I'm going to push down 4 steps to make sure it is 30 pixels. The next thing I want to do now is to create the section title. So I'm going to copy this text, then I'm going to paste again, and then I'm going to drag over here. So I'm going to quickly change the color by coming to the text properties that you can see now, then select the color picker and pick from the black that we have here. Okay, so I'm going to change this text to our courses. So I'll reduce the font size now and make sure that this is 34, and the font weight is medium. And I'm also going to change this to 42, and then make sure that the font weight is black. So I'll close the space between them, then hit enter. All right. So the next thing I want to do now is to make sure that under the text properties, I have auto width selected. And I'm going to also change the line spacing. So I'll change it to 32. Okay, so now I'm going to reposition it on the screen to make sure it is aligned on the left side with what I have here, and also on the top side I'm going to make sure it is aligned, so I'll push it up as you can see now. So now that I already have this, I'm going to also duplicate this layer by copying and pasting, then I'm going to drag down here. So on this side I'm going to change the text to 5 other courses. Okay, so I'm going to change the font weight and make sure that 5 has a thicker font weight and other courses has a regular font weight. So let me select this now and then change the font weight to black, and then I'm going to change the font weight of other courses to regular. Then the plus sign that is also here, I'm going to change it to regular. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is to right align all of this text because presently it is left aligned. So I'm going to click on this to right align. Now the next thing I also want to do is to position it on the right side to make sure that it is aligned on the left with the courses and aligned at the bottom with the Adobe After Effects logo. So finally, I'm going to create the um, circle shapes that we have on the sides of the courses. So now I'll select the ellipse tool, then I'm going to hold shift on the keyboard, then draw the circle, and then I'm going to make sure that I return to the selection tool, and also on the properties sidebar I'm going to toggle off the border line. So now I'm going to pick the color for the Adobe XD from this color you can see now by selecting the color picker and then choose the color. So now I'm going to align the ellipse shape with the grouped elements we already have. But now we are not going to get the alignment because we've already grouped it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this shape now by going to edit, cut. Then I'm going to select any element from the grouped elements we have and I'm going to paste inside. So I'm going to duplicate this now by copying from here. Then I'll select any element from this group so that I can get into the grouped items, and then I'm going to paste. So I'll drag from here and then reposition on this side too. So I'm going to also change the color very quickly by selecting the color picker. Then I'm going to change to the color we have on Adobe Premiere Pro. Okay, let me make it darker a little bit. Okay, just something like this. Okay, so I'm going to copy from the Adobe Premiere Pro, then paste in the Adobe After Effects courses. Then I'm going to select Adobe After Effects, then paste. So I'm going to move it down to see where it is positioned. Then now I'm going to drag and then position on the After Effects. So I'll do the same thing for the Figma. Copy, then click on the Figma text or the shape or the logo and then paste. So it's already pasted here. I'll hold shift on the keyboard, then move to see the shape first. Then I'm going to click and drag to also reposition. So I'll quickly change the color now by selecting the color picker in the appearance properties, and then I'll choose the blue color here. Then for After Effects, I will also select the shape, then go to the color picker and then pick the color over here. So since the Adobe After Effects color is similar to the Adobe Premiere Pro, let me just quickly change the Adobe Premiere Pro to the darker color that you can see now. So I'm going to pick the darker color here. Okay, so this is what we have now. So if we preview, to preview our design now, select the name of the artboard, then click on the play button that you can see here, or the keyboard shortcut for previewing is to select the name of the artboard first, then press Command Enter on the Mac keyboard or Control Enter on the Windows keyboard, and then you can see the preview. So I'm going to make it a full screen now. So this is what we have right now. So what I'm going to do now is to beautify this design very well by adjusting one or two things. So I'll go back to the design now and then select the linear gradient we have here, click on the fill color, and then I'm going to adjust the starting and the end point. So I'll drag it down a little bit to somewhere around here. Then I'll drag the other points up a little bit to somewhere around here. The next thing I also want to do is to give sign in button a shadow color. So I'm going to pick from the shadow color from any of these white rectangle shape, then click on the color properties and then copy the color from here by right clicking, then select on copy. Then we can see that the alpha property is 20%. So we are going to do the same thing with the sign in background color. So make sure that you have shadow turned on, then select the shadow color and then paste the color that we have copied, and we are going to turn this to 20. Okay, so if you also go back, you will see that the X property for the shadow is 0 on the X property, then 10 on the Y property, and then 32 on the blur. So I'm going to also do the same for the sign in now and make sure that it is 0, 10, 32. So I'll select the background for sign in and put 0, 10, 32. So let's make it darker a little bit by going back to the shadow color and then increase this to 40 and then increase the Y position to 15 and then the blur to 38. Okay, so the next thing I want to also quickly do is to make sure that this take the front seat text is not fully white. So I'm going to select it, then also select this other text here and then change the color a little bit. So I'm going to the appearance properties, then click on the fill color and then click on the color picker and choose from the color that we have here. Now I'm going to make it brighter a little bit, maybe somewhere around here is okay. Also, I'm going to also make sure that the other courses we have here is not too dark. So I'm going to select the other courses only. And then I'm going to change the color to something. I'm going to change the color to I'm going to change the color to a gray color that is not as black as the former color we already have, maybe something like this. The next thing I also want to do is to select all of these elements and group all of them. Now to group, right click on your selection and then click on group. So the reason why I have it grouped is because I want to make sure that the logo I have here is aligned to the top of our courses section. So I'm going to drag it to see where the alignment, okay, this is where we have the alignment now. And I'm also going to push this up a little bit to make sure that it is aligned to the bottom of the course section we have here. So I'll select the pictures and the two texts we have above it and then move it up till it is aligned just like this. So the next thing I want to do is to try and drag these two pictures down a little bit and make sure I have a 20 pixels spacing. Okay, and I'm also going to make sure that the sign in text and the background is grouped. So I'll select both and then group both of them. So I'm also going to select the register and the outline color I have for register and also group. So now I'm going to select sign in and register, then group both of them. So I want to make sure that the spacing between the sign in and register button and the text on top of it is 40. So if I select now, then hold Option or Alt on the keyboard and then place my mouse on the buttons, you can see I have 42 pixels. So I'm going to push the buttons up a little bit 2 pixel and make sure that I have 40 pixel now. All right, so now you can use the pen tool to create a custom shape that you want instead of using the rectangle, ellipse, triangle, or the line tool that you can see here. So we can use the pen tool to quickly create any shape. So we are going to create the triangle shape that it is on this side by clicking on any point, then to create the triangle shape that we want. So I'm going to close it off. So rather than using the triangle tool that is here, we can also use the pen tool to create a circle, create a rectangle, a line, and whatever shape we want to create. So now I'm going to change the color of this triangle to white. The border color, I'm going to change it to white. Select the color picker and then choose the white from here. And I'm going to increase the size, the width of the border to 2. Then press enter on the keyboard. So I'm going to duplicate it now by going to edit, duplicate. So I'll drag the other shape to this side and I'm going to turn it upside down using this option that you can see under transform. So I'm going to click flip vertical and then I'm also going to click flip horizontal so that it is facing to the other one that we have here. So let me reposition it very well and also make sure that I have 20 pixels starting from the edge of the screen. So I'm going to move 20 pixels forward now by pressing shift on the keyboard. I'll press an hold shift, then press the right arrow key 2 times. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing to this. I'll select and then make sure that it is touching the edge. Then I'll shift forward with the shift key on the keyboard and the left arrow key 2 times. So right now I'm also going to use the ellipse tool to quickly create an ellipse shape just like this, and I'm going to remove the border color and then I'll bring it over here and then use the mask option by selecting the 2 shapes at the same time and then use the mask option for add or subtract to achieve whatever I want for this shape. So let me just increase the um, stroke size of this shape by increasing the border size under appearance, okay, to 4. So right now we have successfully achieved the same result with what we saw at the beginning of the class. If you click on the play button that you can see here, we can quickly preview what we have done. And you can see that we've been able to create something beautiful than what we saw earlier over here. So this is the design we replicated, and you can see that it looks more beautiful. So this is our new design now. So we have come to the end of the class today. Thank you for watching, and remember to join us in the next class to create some more beautiful designs.